Oh, hi there, Ollie Anderson here. This is a video about the truth bomb thing. If you don't know what that is, well, you soon will. And you can kind of see it behind me, wherever you happen to be watching this. This is a tool that I use with my business coaching clients. It's been designed to kind of act as a shortcut to understanding your brand or creative project or whatever it is that you're working on to quite a heightened degree within a very short space of time. I say that, but you could use this tool if you really wanted to spend hours and hours and hours digging into all the minutiae of whatever it is that your creativity has been directed towards. Or you can just use it like I'm going to use in this video to get a very quick overview of how you can connect more to your community, how you can build something that actually solves problems, how you can ensure that what you're doing is real to who you are as a person, and so that your business is an extension of yourself and all that kind of stuff. It's a free tool, even though I do use it in my coaching sessions, just in those initial stages where I'm trying to get some awareness of where people are, where they're trying to get to. This video, basically, I'm just making it so people understand how the tool works, how to get the most out of it, and in the future, when I'm talking about it, they will basically be able to know what I'm on about if they've seen this video. And if they haven't seen this video, I can direct them here. So anyway, I'm going to go through it today in relation to my own stuff. My own stuff being Ollie Anderson, Coaching for Realness, which is my life coaching business, and Truth Bomb, of course, which is where this tool is from. That's a project that I usually describe these days as helping people to increase their status through creativity. I've worked with people that own restaurants, cafes, delis, those kind of small businesses that are more kind of old-fashioned, I suppose. And then there's the content creators, so YouTubers, podcasters, photographers, filmmakers, other coaches, consultants, blah, blah, blah. What you're about to see is a tool that you can use for basically any business on the planet. The reason I'm using my own stuff in this video is twofold, I guess. One, it just allows me to talk about myself so you can kind of figure out who I am. And it also allows me to kind of refresh some of my ideas around this, I guess. Two, it's obviously quicker because I don't want to spend loads of time on this video. And because I know my own stuff, it's going to be a lot easier for me to talk about it. I'm going to use my own stuff collectively. So basically, it's going to be kind of my personal brand, just the kind of stuff I'm into. But I will use other examples from other businesses, other people that I've worked through anonymously as I go through this. So anyway, let's get into it. If you look at the screen that I'm on now, it tells you the name and everything. Truth Bomb Brand Design Canvas. You can download this for free, like I keep saying, if you go to truthbomb.co.uk. I keep updating it every so often. So if you subscribe to the mailing list, which you have to do to download it, to be totally honest, then I will let you know if there's a new version that comes out, or you can just email me anyway, ollie@truthbomb.co.uk, or you can DM me on Instagram or whatever you need to do. A little blurb there that says basically a short version of what this is about. This canvas will allow you to look at all elements of your brand or creative project by using the Truth Bomb methodology: substance, style, communication, and community. Okay, so that leads us on to this fancy diagram that I've made. Used to throw that all over the place. Haven't used it for a while, but anyway, this diagram on the right basically gives you an overview of what this tool covers. And basically, this just combines all of the stuff that I've learned over the years from working on my own brand, from working in service design, in various companies or one-on-one with people, or when I was doing the stuff in Italy, I was working at the design research lab. I learned a lot of stuff about service design. One thing I noticed when I really started dedicating myself to my own coaching business was that nobody, it seems, talks about a really important link that I've noted and what this tool helps us to explore, which is the link between service design and branding or brand design. I don't just mean branding in the sense of creating a fancy logo. I'm talking about designing and understanding exactly what a brand or creative project represents, what it means, how it can offer value to people and all that kind of stuff. So in order to be all-encompassing, this tool looks at these 4 levels: substance, style, communication, and community. The basic idea is that all brands or creative projects, especially in this day and age where we're on the internet, all of them are basically about building communities. If your brand or creative project or whatever it is that you're trying to do isn't a community, then it basically means that you're not going to have a very good sales and marketing system in place, and you're not going to be doing anything that people actually care about. And if you can't do something that people care about, then of course you're not going to have a business, because at the end of the day, a business is just about creating value for people and having enough people in your ecosystem to buy the things that you offer, and therefore to make the business sustainable. So anyway, it's all about communities, and that's why community is on the outer ring. Substance basically just refers to service design stuff. We're going to get into that in a second, but basically substance is all of the core things at the heart of the brand that make it connect to people on a deep level, and that heighten it to something above just being a commodity. It's things like knowing the values, which I'm going to talk about when I get onto it in a second. Knowing the problems that you're solving for people, knowing what they really want to feel, knowing their aspirations. Like I said, it's all about building a community, but part of that is building a community where people are moving towards their aspirations together. So that's substance, the service design stuff. Style is more of the traditional branding stuff. So it's kind of, what is that going to look like? If we're trying to build something that is coherent, then the style needs to be a reflection of the substance. And so all of these things I'm saying, or are about to say in this video, are important, but the substance is the most important thing in this methodology, because if you get the substance right, it can be translated into all of these other areas. So style is basically traditional branding, logos, fonts, all that kind of stuff. Communication is marketing stuff. What messages are you communicating with the world? What stories are you telling based on the substance that the brand is building? And then finally, community is just community building, doing events, community engagement, making sure people talk to each other, building connections between other people in your network or community, etc, etc. Sorry, I got an itch on my nose, which is why I've touched my face about 6 billion times in this video. Irrelevant. Let's keep going. So that's the short version anyway. Substance, style, communication, and community. So now I'm just going to get onto the actual canvas. As you can see, there are 4 columns: substance, style, communication, community. That's what we're going to be working through. And there's a bunch of questions at each of those levels. It takes us over 2 pages. Also, in the latest version of the canvas, there's this thing here, which I've called the niche matrix, purely because matrix sounds cool, which is about figuring out your niche. That's one of the questions in the canvas. And so because it's so important, there's this extra area here, and then there's some notes at the end, if you want a space for notes. So I'm just going to work through these questions and explain to you what it's all about. As I said, this is for any small business owner. It's for people that have got creative projects. So for photographers, artists, whatever you are, coaches and consultants, basically any businesses or anything actually in the world. You could put a place through here. At one stage, I wanted to put my hometown, where I live currently anyway, Bradford, through there. You can put anything in this: people, places, things, ideas, whatever it is that you're trying to sell and build a community around. Download this tool for free at truthbomb.co.uk and get started. You'll save yourself a lot of time. So I'm going to work through these sections in order: substance, style, communication, and community. The first area is substance, and the first question is about values. The reason that values is here right at the start is because if you get the values right, then you can basically inject those values into everything else that you do. And it's so important to know that, because if your values are authentic and they're real and they allow you to express your creativity by translating them into the right behaviors and the right touch points. If you're doing further work down the line with the service design stuff, touch points just mean any interaction that people have between you and your business. There's a tool called the Customer Journey Map. I didn't invent it, but I've created a version where you can look at the values and translating the values into the touch points. But anyway, values are super important. So for me, my branding stuff and the work that I'm doing, obviously creativity is a huge thing. There's the realness thing. If you don't know, my main book that I wrote is called Personal Revolutions, a short course in realness. That's all about being authentic and so on and so forth. Truth is another one. Freedom, humor is another good one. I'm probably not going to type out all of the answers into this canvas as I go through, because it's going to become a really boring video. But there's some of my values. So creativity, realness, truth, freedom, and humor. If I get those values right, then it allows me basically to have a shortcut to making decisions further down the line. And it applies to anything that I do. So let's say we're in the communication stuff, the marketing stuff. If my posts on Instagram, which are just an example of the marketing thing, are a reflection of these same values, then the brand I'm building is coherent. Normally, when I'm telling people to fill this in, we get a huge list of values. So I could keep going. Obviously, I've got limited time in this video. I try and tell people, even if they get a huge list, to try and narrow it down to no more than maybe 5. That just means that you know they're your core values. So you might have to go through a process of elimination when it comes to it. But anyway, if you get the values right, like I keep saying, it makes it much easier to do the rest of this stuff, because ultimately designing something around your values or choosing the right values for a project is going to be the thing that either makes or breaks it. So, okay, that's the first question there, values. The second question is this one here, about aspirations. How do the users of this brand aspire to be? What's their next level? So for me, I designed this tool, obviously. Like for me, realness, like I've just put in the value section, is one of the core values of everything that I do. And for me, realness just means tapping into whatever it is about human beings that is real, that is true, that is authentic, whatever it is that allows us to keep growing and to keep moving with reality. And that's why when I try and look at brands and creative projects, I try and find this timeless way of relating to human beings. So something I should probably say, which is relevant to this, realness basically just means figuring out what's real about human beings and understanding the things about us that are timeless. And so in my life coaching business, Coaching for Realness, Ollie Anderson Coaching, whatever I end up calling it, depending on what day it is, realness is just about helping people to understand how can they be a timeless human being. This Truth Bomb project is about looking at how we can make our creative projects timeless and apply to all human beings, or at least resonate at a deeper level that's going to last. When it comes to human beings, that means we have to understand that they are aspirational creatures. Aspirations just means that we got a next level. We've been real in the sense I just talked about, where we keep growing, we keep moving forward. And if you want to build a brand, or you want your creative project to really resonate with people, you need to understand that people have aspirations and to work with those aspirations and to fit into them. So for me and the work that I'm doing, like, how do the users of this brand aspire to be? They want to be more real. That's the short version, right? They want to be more real. With the Truth Bomb projects specifically, their aspiration is to increase their status whilst also making use of their creativity. And that's why the little catchphrase for Truth Bomb is increasing your status through creativity. They want to go up in the world and get a bit more respect from their colleagues, maybe their peers, other creative professionals, and they want to use their creativity to do that. So for me, they're the kind of aspirations I'm talking about. If it was a more brick wall business, maybe you got a restaurant or something, maybe the aspirations of your clientele is just that they want to feel like they're getting a taste of a more high class lifestyle. They want to move to this lifestyle where, you know, they're jet setters, or they're elegant, they're it people, whatever you want to call them. And you would need to understand that, the aspirations of your audience, so that you can give them a taste of that when they're in your premises. Okay, so that's the aspirations thing. The next question is here, problem solved. What problem are you solving for your audience? So for me, with my coaching business, basically I'm helping people to understand how they can start moving forward with their aspirations in the way that I've talked about. A lot of people, they kind of know what they want, or they have a loose idea, but they don't know how to do it. And so they come to me so we can explore options, we can figure out how to make it actually possible, and to get them on the road to building momentum to doing that and getting where they want to be. Maybe if you've got a restaurant, maybe one of the problems is that there are no venues in your city that offer a certain kind of food. That's a problem. So it doesn't have to be, you know, something really grandiloquent and lofty and pretentious or anything like that. But you need to understand the problems you're solving so you can sell the service to people. Okay, so that's the short version. I don't want to spend loads of time in this video. I'm just walking people through this so they can see how much you can do in a short amount of time. Right, this next question in the substance thing is about niche. Who is this for? See the niche matrix. So let me scroll down here to this niche matrix thing. Basically, this is about understanding whether or not your business is going to be able to make money, and if it's going to be aimed at people that are actually going to care about what you're doing. So the first thing in this little matrix thing is that they need a burning desire. You need to be selling something or helping people to solve problems, like we just said, with something that they really, really, really have an itch that needs scratching around. For me, it's for my business, the coaching business, it's about helping people to move forward, and they really have a desire to do that because maybe they've reached a point where they just can't take the current version of their life anymore, and they feel like they're not living up to their potential, whatever it is, and they really have a desire to start changing that and to making a difference in their own lives. Money to spend is the next bit here. There's no point creating a niche or aiming your business at people that can't afford it. Like I said right at the start, it basically all comes down to sales and marketing. And if people go through the process of building up to wanting to work with you, and then it turns out they don't have any money, then ultimately you've wasted their time and you've wasted your time. That doesn't mean that you can't help people that can't afford your services. Maybe you take a certain allocated amount of money from the profits that you do make, so you can do pro bono coaching, or so you can feed the homeless, or whatever it ends up being. But for your initial core offering, people need to be able to afford what you're doing, and so you need to consider that whilst you're designing the business or brand from the outset. So for me, a lot of people that I work with, they're already in jobs or whatever it is, and they can afford coaching. They've got money set aside for training and courses and stuff like that. And so it's a good fit. Like, I'm not wasting anyone's time and they're not wasting mine. Know where to find them. There's a saying. So that's the third thing on this little matrix, knowing where to find them. There's a saying, fish where the fish are. So like, if you don't know where to find your audience, then you're wasting your time. Maybe they're on social media, maybe they're not. A lot of people just assume their audience is on social media, but they might not be. Depending on your business, you might go find them at the local bus station or whatever it is. But you need to be able to, first and foremost, know where you can find them. So for me, like, I find people on YouTube and Instagram. There's various websites that I'm on for promoting coaching services and stuff like that. That is where I find a lot of my customers. Living market. So that's the fourth one. You need to aim to be working in a market that has some life in it. So if you decide you want to sell videotapes and do a Patrick Bateman or whatever it is, you're competing with Blockbuster Video, well, you're wasting your time because that market is totally dead. So it doesn't matter how good your idea for that market is. It's a dead market. There's no point doing it. And then finally, likability. So I always tell people, you're going to spend a lot of time working with your niche. You might as well like them. So you might go through these other 4 points in this matrix, come up with a really amazing niche. There's a good market, it's growing. There's, you know where to find them, and they can afford it, and they've got burning desires, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, you've just designed something for a bunch of assholes that you're not going to be able to tolerate day in, day out. Well, that is a bad way of doing it. You need to make sure you like them. And I like all of my clients because we share values. We all value creativity and stuff like that. Or I can be compassionate towards them because I know that they're hitting the same walls again and again. They don't know how to move forward, and etc. It's very rare that I work with someone I don't like, and it's because it's all about being real, basically, for me, which is what I care about. So anyway, that's the niche thing. So you need to understand the niche. That's part of the substance. If you don't understand the niche, then you're wasting your time. It just makes it a lot easier. Polarizing premise. That's the next thing here. Okay, polarizing premise. So for me, a shortcut to, I suppose, getting attention online, or to knowing that what you're doing is going to be something that people connect with quite strongly. A shortcut to doing that is to be polarizing, to be a bit provocative. And so from the outset, part of this canvas is understanding that you can build polarizing premises into what you're doing. So for my work, there are two polarizing premises that always pop up. I've made videos about them already on my YouTube channel. One is real always works. It's kind of weird that that is polarizing, but in this world that we live in, where there's a lot of unreal nonsense going on and stuff like that, real is something that is often frowned upon. So that is actually a polarizing premise. Two, give me something real, or GTFO. So in relation to relationships with other people, I'm always saying, like, if they're not giving you anything real, and that is a consistent pattern and is toxic and is ruining your life or whatever it is, and there's no hope for moving forward and growing, then give me something real, or GTFO. That's a polarizing premise. So I can use those for my marketing materials, or just in the way that I talk about things. And also, it's aligned with the brand values, which is obviously super important. Again, with this restaurant example, I keep using a restaurant because it's just simple. Maybe one of your polarizing premises is just no riffraff or something like that. That really is polarizing because some people are going to be like, wow, okay, you think I'm riffraff. It's going to cause all kinds of arguments potentially. But by saying something like that, you're really putting out a strong message about what you're about and what your brand stands for. So think about something polarizing for your brand. You might have to be a bit creative to come up with that, but it's actually very important because further down the line, it just makes it easier to figure out your marketing materials and all that kind of stuff. All right, so the next question in the substance part is inspiration. What is this brand inspiring people to do? So we talked about aspirations. That's where are people trying to get to. Inspiring is about making them take action. So what is your brand causing people to do or inspiring people to do? So for me, part of the Truth Bomb project is it's inspiring people to actually step up, dedicate themselves to their creativity, and then do something with it. And, ideally, you want to show that you've done that yourself in your own life. So for me, like now, like I don't work for anyone else. I work for myself. I'm doing this every day. I'm living my values, etc. That is actually inspiring to some of the people that I work with because they can see, oh, okay, this guy's done it and he's just an idiot, basically. If he can do it, then I can do it. That's the level you need to think out with inspiration. So again, with the restaurant, maybe you're just inspiring people to get more dressed up and to live a higher class lifestyle or whatever it is. In this example with this imaginary restaurant I keep talking about, it could be anything. But if you know what you're inspiring people to do, then it makes it a lot easier to, again, further down the line, when you translate in this substance into the communication stuff, it makes it easier to know how to go about that. Feelings. How is this brand? It says brand all the time through here, but it could be just any creative project, like I'm saying. How is this brand helping people to feel how they want to feel? What specific feelings are you giving them? So a lot of people are going through life, they're feeling all kinds of feelings that they don't want to be feeling. Like life is hard for a lot of people, right? We all know that. And that's because a lot of people are living unreal lives, and so they become frustrated because of the friction between themselves and life in general, the life they want to be living. And that frustration eventually turns to misery. And because of that frustration and all the associated emotions that come with it, like anger and self-judgment and anything else, stress, etc. that you can think of, people feel that way a lot of the time, but they don't want to be feeling that way. And so you need to understand how people are feeling, how they want to feel, and how you can actually help them to start moving in that direction. It feeds into the aspirational thing, but it's just at the level of feeling. And so for me, like a lot of people that I might be working with, they basically feel frustrated. They feel annoyed with themselves sometimes because they're not going out there and doing the things that they want to be doing. They feel like, they're judging themselves too much, or they feel like other people are judging them and they don't have the respect of people maybe that they could be getting, etc. Basically, they want to feel the opposite of that. They want to be making moves. They want to be moving forward. They want to be taking big actions, building momentum, getting energized through their creativity, blah, blah, blah. And understanding that and the specific feelings that they want to have allows me to ensure that my coaching, the product that I'm offering, the service that I'm offering, basically meets that need. Maybe with the restaurant thing, people feel, they're working on a 9-to-5 basis and they're just bored of their lives, filling out spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. They want somewhere where they can escape. Your restaurant offers that escape. It might give them a taste of being on holiday or whatever it is. That's what you need to think about when you think about how people feel and how you can make them feel based on how they want to feel. Next question in the substance thing, there's only a few more questions here, is life stories. How does this brand fit into the stories people are telling themselves about who they are, where they've been, and where they're going? Everybody is telling themselves a story. That feeds into the core thing we said about aspirations. You need to know how your brand fits into that story. So for me, maybe people are telling themselves a story that, they really want things to work out and they're trying really hard and they don't know how to do it, but they're committed to making changes if they can. And the story they tell themselves when they start working with me is, okay, right, finally, I'm on the train to making some changes in my life and getting towards the future that I want to get towards. With the restaurant thing, they might be telling themselves that they're bored of their lives, they're bored of their jobs, but when they're at your restaurant, the story is changed because they might be hanging around with really interesting people and they might be tasting things from overseas, it makes them feel like they're part of a bigger world, and that the story can change because they see that, you know, there's more to life than just working in a call center or whatever it is. So you need to understand the stories that people tell themselves about themselves, and then you need to fit into that story. And actually that goes for the marketing thing as well. There's an old saying in marketing, your job really is to get into the conversation they're having with themselves and the stories that they're telling themselves. Okay, so that's that one. Lifestyle experience. How is this product or service giving them an experience of a desired lifestyle? Desired lifestyle just means self-explanatory, really. What kind of a lifestyle do they want to be living based on, in comparison to the lifestyle that they're currently living? There's a lot of lifestyle stuff going on online now. It's all about lifestyle brands, and that's basically why this is here, because people ultimately are aspirational, like I keep saying, and aspirations basically are just about living a better lifestyle. So for me, with coaching that I tell people, it's about it's about understanding where are they trying to get in terms of the lifestyle they want to be living. Maybe they want to be financially free. Maybe they want to be their own boss. Maybe they want to be going on holiday more. Maybe they want to be working, whatever it is. You have to understand that. And then you look at where they are now, and then you figure out a plan for closing the gap between the two. So all coaching is kind of lifestyle based in that sense. With the restaurant thing, it's like I already kind of said, maybe they come into your restaurant, they're doing things and eating things that remind them of being on holiday or whatever it is. The music you're playing, it might be more exotic than anything else they can listen to in that town or city, whatever it is. Basically, you need to understand the kind of lifestyle they want to be having and to give them a taste of that, or to put them on the path to actually living that lifestyle. And if you can play a role in that, then they're going to actually care about what you're doing. They're going to be deeply connected to you and your brand, and it's actually going to be something that's meaningful. It's not just another commodity, basically. Symbolism is the last question here in this section on substance. What does this brand symbolize to its audience, i.e. a life change, a value, or an idea? So for me, like when people start working with me, that symbolizes that they've actually committed to making a change. It's all about being committed to moving forward, basically. If it's a restaurant that's super elegant and fancy, it's symbolizing that they are part of that elite group within society, potentially, depending on how you design it, where they can feel part of that. You can basically understanding what you symbolize to people makes it a lot easier further on down the line to choose the right imagery for your brand and so on and so forth. And that is why that's so important, because at the end of the day, all brands are just symbols. They're just words. The word Apple, the word Google, the word Microsoft, whatever it is, they're just words. And all of the stuff that heightens our feelings about those words is because of the substance stuff that we've just done the work on right here. So that's the substance section. It's the most important one. Obviously, you could spend, thousands of hours on each one of those sections if you wanted to. But you can gain a lot of information and a lot of understanding by just going through that rather quickly, actually, and thinking about it on not that deep of a level. Obviously, the more thought you put into it, the better. You're going to get better results. But yeah, just in terms of understanding, you don't have to do that much. The other thing I should say about this whole canvas is the second step, once you filled it in, is of course acting on it. So if you just fill this in and you get some nice information, okay, that's cool. But without taking actions, i.e. translating all the learning you've had here by filling this out into an implementation plan, then you're just wasting your time. So don't forget, it's just a little caveat, that if you are working on this, you've downloaded it at truthbomb.co.uk. If you've downloaded it and you're filling this in, make sure you start acting on it. There's no point doing it otherwise. All right, so the next bit after substance is the style section. So substance, style, communication, community, like I keep saying. So now we've got a good understanding of the substance. We can translate it into a style. So the first question is about aesthetics. What words sum up how this brand should look based on its substance? So for me, my brand is all about creativity, realness, truth, freedom, etc. For me, the idea of realness and an aesthetic for it is just about being very direct. And so most of what I do in terms of graphic design and stuff like that, branding, is very simple. I use black and white colors a lot of the time, or I use direct, in your face, kind of pastel colors sometimes. And those kind of simple colors, I think, are just very real. There's no point having too much imagery or too much fancy stuff going on when I'm just trying to be direct and cut to the chase about what life is and just ultimately share truth in a very human way. So for me, direct is definitely the kind of aesthetic I want to go for. Human is another, because I'm trying to be very human. It's all about being a real human being, after all. You could spend hours thinking about this. Maybe the restaurant thing, your aesthetic is about being elegant, or you want to be, I don't know, arabesque, or you want to be whatever it is. You can spend a lot of time thinking about it. Like I said in this video, I want to not spend a lot of time. But once you got that aesthetic, the important thing is that it should go back to what you've already said in the substance part. Elements. What existing elements could you combine for the look of this brand? So this question isn't 100% necessary, to be honest with you, but it's just about basically giving people a creative impetus to get their juices flowing by just combining things quickly. So the examples I've given here are maybe you're going to combine cyberpunk with arabesque, and that's going to create something that may be a representation of the substance of your brand. You might combine, I don't know, Christmas and Halloween, like that film, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and you're going to get something that hasn't been seen before. Basically, you combine different elements, and it's going to give you an aesthetic style. And ideally, it's going to go back to your branding stuff. Your substance, sorry. Color scheme. What colors best express the substance and attract the right vibe? So for me, like I said, I use a lot of black and white. I use kind of gradiated colors to some extent. I use things that are quite soothing because I don't want to be too over the top, flamboyant, or any of that stuff. Basically, I just want, in a lot of my marketing materials, I just want it to be simple, which could be another word for my aesthetic, and direct, without basically distracting people or being garish or anything like that. I don't want to look pretentious. I don't want to look like I'm trying to distract people or anything like that. I just want it to be about what it's about, basically. So for me, it's minimal, simple, basic colors. Fonts. What kind of fonts represent what you're going for? So for me, if I take this back to the value stuff, which is basically about realness, truth, creativity, I like to use very direct fonts. So apart from this font, which is called Manifesto, which I used on my book cover, Personal Revolutions, and I think maybe Shadow Life, can't remember. But anyway, I like this font because it's it reminds me of like it's like a revolutionary kind of thing. But in general, I use very, very direct fonts. So I like Futura, which is like a super cool font. I actually stole it from the poster for Eyes Wide Shut, which is, I just like that poster because it's very direct. And I use another one called Nimbus. Both of those fonts. Nimbus is this one on here where it says style. But anyway, both those fonts, they're just super impactful in my opinion. Very direct. Don't mess around or beat around the bush. And that's ultimately what I want. Maybe you got an elegant restaurant, you want some kind of fancy font to reflect that. Can't think of any off the top of my head. Maybe you want Dido or whatever it's called, which is a very fashion-y kind of font. Either way, the obvious thing to say is that the style, and in this case the font, needs to reflect the substance of the brand, which is why that question's here. Images. What images need to be associated with this brand? So for me, a lot of imagery I use when I do use it is basically nature stuff. So part of being real, which is what this is all about, my branding anyway, part of being real is about being aligned with nature, or getting out in nature and being, finding your edge and feeling one with everything and all that kind of stuff. So it's easy for me. I just use a lot of nature stuff. I also use, which is part of nature, obviously, I use the ocean a lot. Well, not a lot, but sometimes I use the ocean a fair amount. And the reason I use the ocean is because I'm always talking about riding the reality waves. The idea being that you just have to go with the flow, kind of. You can't change things that can't be changed. You don't know what's coming. Like reality either gives things, it takes them away. That's about waves, and it's about working with those waves. I was talking to someone else about this the other day, actually, and for me, I use the metaphor of the ocean and waves. For her, she uses just about being on a path, and it's the same thing, but because her branding is slightly differently, It's a different metaphor. And that's what this image is about, finding the right metaphors to express what you're doing, basically, what you're all about, based, sound like a broken record, based on the substance of the brand as a whole. Metaphors. So this just builds on that question about images, and it kind of goes back to what I just said. How are the brand images a metaphor for the substance of the brand? So I just said that with the ocean thing. The ocean thing is a metaphor for these reality waves, blah, blah, blah. Nature is a metaphor, I suppose, to getting back in touch with your nature and being one with life and blah, blah, blah. That's all part of the realness idea, which is super important to me. Basically, yeah, you need to ensure that the imagery you use, ideally, if you want to design one of these real brands, which is what this tool is about, you need to ensure that the imagery is a metaphor for what you're talking about, basically, as much as possible. And that'll allow you to heighten what you're doing. If you just choose random images because you think they look cool, then it's not coherent. It's a waste of time. Self-image. How does your style strengthen the desired image of your niche? So ideally, for me, my niche, the people that I work with and serve, are direct like me. They don't just want someone beating around the bush and just coming up with all kinds of flamboyant crap that doesn't make any sense but sounds nice. They just want to get straight to the point and start making changes in their lives or increasing their status through creativity with their own creative project. And so for me, my basically direct, blunt, simple, minimal, whatever word you want to use, imagery that I use is basically appealing to them because there's no bullshit and that's what they want. That's what I think, and hopefully it's true. So that's the style section, and as you can see, it feeds off of the substance thing, and if you do it right, then it's about building something that's coherent. So that didn't take long either. Again, you could spend a bunch of time going over this and each question in it and getting everything perfect. It's a living document. That's how I describe it. You might spend an hour filling it in today. After you watch this video, you download it at truthbomb.co.uk, and then you spend an hour going over it. But then maybe over time, you keep going back to it, keep refining it. As your brand grows, you ride those reality waves, and it becomes more and more refined, more and more coherent as you go through life. Brand messages. So now we're in the communication section, which is about taking the substance and marketing it, basically putting messages out there into the world. Brand messages. What messages are you communicating with your brand? So for me, collectively with the Truth Bomb thing and my life coaching thing, I'm putting out the message that basically you can take control of your life. You don't just have to do what you've been told, that you have a lot more choice than you might think, that real always works. And if you figure out something real and you take a risk, you take a gamble, then you can basically pay off. You can get a payoff from that gamble, sorry. They're just some examples of my brand messages. Maybe you got a fancy restaurant, you're saying, look, there's no riffraff allowed here, or we got the best service in the city, or whatever it is. Those messages, you need to know them so that you can put them out in your marketing materials. Not going to spend loads of time on any of these, but basically that's what that's all about, right? Brand messages, you need to know them. A lot of them are going to go back to your polarizing premise or premises. Story. This is a really important thing. I'm always talking about, well, not always, but often talking about how with our content, with the stuff we put out online, a good barometer for whether or not it's crap is that it needs to do three things: entertain, educate, and elevate. So entertain, be funny or be at least real, educate, give valuable information, elevate, help people move towards their aspirations. A fourth thing that I like to add to that as well is to tell stories as you do it. Human beings, as we all know, are storytelling creatures. We love stories. They keep us in suspense. They keep us watching. And so maybe not always, but put some stories into what you do. And that's why this question is here. What is the story of this brand? Think in terms of point A to point B. The reason it says think in terms of point A to point B is because the best value you can offer your audience is transformational value. Transformational value. That just means you're helping them to move towards their aspirations. So for me, basically, I'm not just selling coaching sessions when people come to me. I'm selling some kind of transformation. They're trying to be more confident. They're trying to move towards a certain goal. They're trying to be more creative. They're trying to, whatever it is, that is a transformation. That's what they want. With the restaurant example that I keep using, The transformation is that they feel like they're part of another world or whatever. You need to understand the transformation. And so understanding your story in terms of point A to point B is about showing that transformation to some extent. So for me, my story is, okay, I used to be a model in Japan, and I was living this really kind of high class sort of fancy lifestyle, but you always felt empty. And then I got sick. I was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease, came back to England, had to rebuild my life. And I realized actually the life that I was rebuilding, because the attitude change I went through, growing more real, was actually much more fulfilling than anything I'd had before. And so I learned to realize that my kidney failure was a blessing because it had shown me all these truths about life, and I was on a much more solid foundation. So for me, unreal to real, point A to point B. It doesn't have to be anything complicated, but you need to know that so that you can tell people why you're doing what you're doing, how you got there, why you care about it, why you're not a phony. All of this stuff in this canvas, by the way, could be used to create a totally empty brand. But the idea is that you're building something that's true. We're not bullshitting people. We don't just choose unreal values. We don't just promise things we can't do. You want to build something that's actually real and true. And so your story, if you dig into it, needs to become the story of your brand. It needs to be the transformation you've been through, ideally. Or, if not you, someone needs to be the face of the brand. And that story needs to involve them, probably. Unless you're one of those like KFC, where you go really far back in time, and you're telling the story of like this old guy with a mustache and whatever transformation he went through, I don't know. But the point is, stories are human, and if you want to humanize your brand and your marketing, you need to understand the story. That's why that's there. Next question, brand, personality, attitude, values. That says values, but it should say voice. What words sum up your brand and the tone that you use to come across with, e.g. outspoken, classy, witty? So for me, because one of my values is about being real, I try to be real in the way that I come across, in the way that I just market myself or talk in these videos, whatever it is. It's all about being coherent, okay? So another thing that I try and do, I try to be funny sometimes, I try to be witty when I can. I suppose I'm a bit outspoken sometimes in some cases, but in general, I'm just trying to be real. If your restaurant is about being elegant, then I suppose you need to reflect that in the way that you speak. A good way to fill this in is to think about a role model. So maybe you want to sound like, I don't know, Humphrey Bogart or something for whatever reason. It makes it easier to think about how you're going to come across. But anyway, the brand, personality, attitude, voice needs to reflect the core substance of the brand. Communication. What changes, change the world. What changes do you represent in the world? You don't have to go out there and save the world or anything like that. Excuse me. You don't have to go out there and change the world or anything like that with your creative work, but you still need to understand what changes it represents in the world. And that's because online, if we're building a community, or offline as well, to be honest, but if we're building a community, they will often care about the same kind of things in the world. And so you need to know that for your marketing messages and for the community building stuff that you might do later. And so understanding the changes you represent in the world just allows you to figure out a lot of messages that you might want to share with people. And it's not, it doesn't have to be anything deep. So for me, I like to think that my brand and the work that I'm doing represents a world where people are more real. And just from that little sentence, a world where people are more real, there are like 1,000,000,006 things I could say about why the world is often unreal and what we need to do about that, or why we should step away from it if we're individuals and we want to make a choice to go against the grain or whatever. If the world was more real, it would look like XYZ. I could talk about that for hours and hours. With the truth bomb thing, I talk about creativity, why people end up in situations where their life is unfulfilling, why they're in jobs that they don't like, why those jobs kill their creativity, how that's related to the system as a whole, blah, blah, blah. You could go on for hours and hours and hours about all that stuff, or I could, rather. Basically, understanding that allows you to talk about where you fit into the world. And you need to know that so you know where you don't fit into the world. Okay, that's the last question there. The final section is just this bit about community. So like I said at the start of this probably quite long ass video. I don't know how long I've been going, but anyway, as I said right at the start, all brands, if they're real, are communities, because it's about understanding how people come together, the values that they all share. And this is why, again, the core part of this thing really is just understanding the values that it's all built around. People come together around values and aspirations and causes, which is the changing the world stuff actually. And you need to know that so that you can create engagement between yourself and your community, and between your community members and each other. And that's what this is about. So the first question is movement. If this brand was a movement, what unites its members? What are they trying to do? So for my coaching stuff, if I had a huge community, which I don't, to be honest, I haven't like built like millions of people that are following me or anything. But if they came together and started a movement, it would probably be about a world with less bullshit restrictions on our freedom, with less of a lack of creativity holding us back from our real lives. It would represent a world where people are going to take responsibility and understand that they have choices and that nobody can hold them back, basically. Something like that. And you could build a movement around that. You could give it a fancy name like the creative revolution or something like that. Maybe I've just given myself an idea. And ultimately, that would allow me to understand why those people are sticking around and talking to each other, ideally, if I'm engendering those connections, why people are doing that after they've interacted with my brand in the first place. Mutual support. How are community members helping each other to grow more real? Just to go back to the movement thing, for the restaurant example, maybe your restaurant is part of a fair trade movement or something like that. Or maybe you give a certain amount of money to the homeless every month, or you give your leftover food to them, or whatever it is. Or you're operating as a collective because you don't believe in, traditional hierarchies of society, whatever it is. You need to understand that so you can build it into the design of what you're doing. The next question after the movement one, is about mutual support. How are community members helping each other to grow more real? The whole point, like I keep saying, is that this tool is about looking at your brand so you can build aspirational communities. People are growing real together. That means more authentic towards the next level of whoever it is that they're trying to become. And you need to understand that so that your community of people can do that together. And so for me, I've had WhatsApp groups before and stuff like that. It's about bringing people together to grow more real. Like literally, I know the question is about growing real in a general sense, but for me, it's about coming together, growing more real, supporting each other, sharing things, exploring limiting beliefs, all that stuff that holds us back and stops us from being real. Mutual support can be about anything, basically, as long as it's helping them to grow more real in the direction that they want to grow around, which is always about the values, ultimately. You might befriend people within the community. You might get them to buddy up as with a befriending service or something. You might have a WhatsApp group. You might have a Facebook thing. You might have a forum. You might do offline events. You might do a special course. Whatever it is, that is about offering mutual support. And if the community supports each other, it's going to be stronger. So you might as well try and figure out how you can do that. Events. What events can you host based on the substance and style? So if you understand your values, you can translate those values into some kind of an event. So if you value creativity, you're going to put an event on that's going to bring people together around creativity. It might be a workshop, it might be a seminar, it might be a weekend retreat where people come and show off their creativity based on the things that they've learned by using your service, whatever it is. Obviously, you need to be creative, but if you put events on, that is literally a way to bring people together. If you want to bring the style into it, then maybe you're going to bring in nature or whatever it is. It's just about being creative with what you've already got and saying, okay, how do I turn this into an event where I'm going to bring a bunch of people together around stuff that they care about? Permission. What does the existence of this brand give them permission to be? So a lot of people out there in the world, they want to make changes in their lives, but they're waiting for somebody or something to give them permission to do it, because that's just how they're wired. They got this self-limiting belief. They don't realize they can just take permission or give themselves permission whenever they want. So your brand needs to give people permission to do it, basically via giving them social proof, showing them that other people are doing it. So if people that don't know about my coaching stuff yet or whatever see other people that have had my coaching doing well, that is giving them permission to do the same thing. They're like, oh, okay, wow, look, this guy's done this. I want to do that too. How did they do it? And then they get involved in the community. So this permission thing is a way of bringing people on the peripheries further in, because you're basically showcasing through testimonials or whatever it is, videos, etc. You're showing that this community is doing a certain thing, and that is allowing them to feel more strongly about doing that, but also it's bringing in other people, potentially. Psychographics. What personal qualities do your core audience share? So a lot of the time when people are talking about this service design stuff or designing businesses or whatever, they tend to just focus on demographics, especially when we're doing ads and stuff like that on Facebook or wherever we do ads. And demographics, if you don't know, is just like the labels you can give people. Okay, it's a man, he earns this much money, he lives here, he's been divorced, whatever it is, just external labels basically, where they are geographically, etc. Psychographics is just the personality traits that they share. So for me, a psychographic that I could use potentially is rebelliousness. A lot of the people that I work with are quite rebellious. And I suppose you need to be quite rebellious to start moving in a real direction when the world is asking you to be unreal. And so if I understand that my community is about being a bit rebellious, then I could probably feed that and do something with that rebellion. That sounds a bit anarchistic. It's not supposed to, but that's just an example. Maybe if a lot of people in your restaurant audience are socially conscious, then you would do something with that. But basically you need to understand the psychographics, the personal qualities, and the, I suppose, psychological landscape of your audience so that you can use it to help them, not for evil. Interaction. How does this community interact with each other? How can you facilitate the conversation as a brand? So basically it just means, how are you going to bring them together so that they can talk about the things that you're doing and that they're all doing collectively? So it might be a Facebook group, that's a common one, WhatsApp group, you might have a Telegram channel, you might have a forum, you might do offline events, like I said, blah, blah, blah. It can be anything. But how are you going to get people talking and coming together and building some kind of a life around the values that the brand is built around according to its substance? Word of mouth. What does the community love about your brand that they'll share with others? So basically this is just about knowing what value you really offer, why you're doing it in a way that is remarkable or that is worthy of being talked about, or that is just so good because they can't get it anywhere else that they're going to go tell people. Basically, you need to understand why people would care about what you're doing and why they would talk about it. And also, I suppose, how are you going to get them to talk about it? Maybe you need a system where you're going to be asking them to give you a Google review or to refer a friend or whatever it is. You need to understand all that stuff. And then finally, there's the last question. What frustration does this tribe hope to be relieved from? Now, if you know me, I'm often saying that hope is a dirty word. But unfortunately, we live in a world where everyone's frustrated, or not everyone, but a lot of people are frustrated. And when people are frustrated, well, that means that they need hope. And your brand, your community needs to give them some kind of a hope. It might just be hope that change is possible. It might be hope that the world can be a better place because of X, Y, Z. It might just be hope that, you know, there's a place out there that offers amazing food in a city where you normally get small portions and it all tastes like crap. It doesn't matter. You need to understand, though, the frustrations so that you can basically offer something around the substance of what you're doing that alleviates that frustration. And that's basically it. So that was a lot of information. I just wanted to go over these questions so that if you download this canvas, you can put your own brand through it and you can know exactly what the questions are hoping to get from you. Like I've said, you could spend a short amount of time on this and still get a lot of value, or you can spend a lot of time on it and get a shitload of value. Either way, I've used this with loads of people now, and it is a very, very good tool for opening people's minds, giving a big overview of what they're trying to do with their creative projects or brands, or whatever else they're putting through. Like I said, you can put anything through it. You can put a person, a place, an idea, a inanimate objects, whatever it is you're trying to build a community around or to sell and just do something with, you can learn a lot about it by looking at the questions in this and going through the process of substance, style, communication, and community. Like I also said at the start of the video or early on in the video, all of that is worthless unless you act on it. And so the next stage when I go through this with people is figuring out what actions do they need to take. Maybe you do the early part of it, you just do the substance thing, you realize that your brand values are creativity, realness, truth, freedom, and humor. You need to sit down and you need to say, okay, well, now that I know this, now that I know that these are my values, what am I going to do with them? And you're just going to look at the system you've already got, the project you've already built, and you're going to say, okay, well, how do I make it, how do I embody creativity more? How do I translate these values into behaviors? How do I translate these values into marketing messages? How do I translate these values into the way that I am personally, if I'm going to be the spokesperson for the brand? And so that applies not just to the values question, to everything. You need to ask yourself, okay, now that I know this, what am I going to do about it? Normally, if I'm working with people, or often if I'm working with people, I'll turn it into an implementation plan if it's relevant to do so. That means just going through it, looking at each answer to each question and saying, okay, this is the answer, what is the action? And then give it a deadline and then go out and do it. So that's basically it. I wanted to make this video so people understand what the Truth Bomb Canvas is. I'm going to keep building on it. You can get this version at truthbomb.co.uk. You can download it for free, like I said. If you've got a creative project, well, I 100% recommend using it. I know it works. You've just seen how much information it can help you to get about your own stuff. Treat it as a living document. Keep going back to it. And I guarantee pretty much that you're going to understand your brand better than you've ever understood it before. And if you act on the stuff, well, it's going to help you to be more engaging with the people that you engage with, have better marketing messages, and hopefully look better while you're doing it in terms of the brand style. Substance, style, communication, community. I would recommend downloading it. Of course I would, because I made it. You can do it right now, truthbomb.co.uk. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you on another video sometime in the future. If you have any questions about this or anything else, just send me an email, ollie@truthbomb.co.uk, or if you're feeling brave, give me a call. It's +44 UK 07 511 973 905. Peace.